This is Spectrum.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like looking at a battleship and saying, somebody telling you, oh, that thing can fly. I mean,
right.
Your mind cannot compute that something that's shaped like a Vicks cough drop that's that thick and heavy looking could fly.
Right. And so it was just sitting there parked?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did they how did you get an eyeful of that? I mean, did they let you go over to it, or?
No. I was looking over the top of my glasses.
Oh, the glasses that you had to wear. Okay.
Outside, yeah. Now, when they have classified flights, they're posted. You get a data sheet every day saying, they'll say flight X 102 or something, 12 noon. And most of the testing is done at night. So people can't see from the faraway mountains what's really going on. And then they have these huge lights they turn on facing the mountains. So if you're trying to, take pictures of some, it's almost impossible.
Right, that would make it difficult.
Actually, I have a picture Buddy took at Groom Air Base of the early F-117, and they call them fog lights, but there's these big, huge, round spotlights they pointed out towards the mountains. And on our website, Alien Scientist Forum, alienscientist.com forum, under my special guest, you can go through there and you can actually see that F-117 with the huge bright lights. So by that time, rumors were getting out, before I left for Okinawa, about these strange triangles being sighted. Right. And this was long before the media caught wind of it. I mean, I believe it wasn't until 1988 that there was the Belgian triangle flap.
That's true. Yeah, okay.
So I had actually been told by my colonel that I could have stayed at Nellis and pulled TDY trips up to Groom Air Base. They liked my work. And, of course, my buddy Dave Cassing gave me glowing reviews for my work at Detachment 3, which is Groom Air Base. But I was ready to get out of there. My wife and I had just split up. We're getting a divorce, and I basically wanted to head to the hills, and the farthest hills were Okinawa.
Okay, so you went out to Okinawa.
So I went and picked cadre again to Okinawa to field the F-15s in Okinawa, Japan. And later on, I would be transferred to field the F-16. I ended up as deputy superintendent with hundreds of people working for me, and my boss was Oscar Seifert. He's retired Air Force now, too. So that was interesting. That's where the trawler experience happened, and a couple other things I probably go into at some later point.
Actually, yeah, no, I'm going to ask you about that, because that was a very interesting point of the book. The character was out in the sea doing a dive. I think it was a recovery mission, and the character Joe Green seen a bright light. Now, I'm sure there's more to the story, obviously.
Yes, like I had mentioned earlier, Rostislav Yukov was the head of the team, and we had a large French maritime boat. Our equipment was European, down to our European underwear. So if we got caught, we'd have deniability that we were U.S. military. In fact, if we got caught picked up by the Russians, we were on our own. Now, obviously, Rostislav and the crew spoke Russian. And the rest of us knew, like, hi, yes, no. I mean, we were given a real short course and just very, very, maybe 40 or 50 Russian words. That was it.
Yeah.
So if, somebody asked those questions, we could nod and keep on working and go, yeah, or, whatever. And so we're out on this boat in the East China Sea, and the National Security Agency had coordinates of where they believe the Russian trawler sank. So we had these grids, and we were dropped off about a mile apart in a triangular grid. And we'd go down with our transponders to about 100 feet. And if we got a lock-on signal, we would drop the transponders. So like I said, when a deep submersible or American submarine came up, they could pick up the signal from the transponder sitting hopefully near the down trawler. So my first two coordinates, I didn't get a lock on. And on my third coordinates, after resetting my unit once or twice, I got a lock on. But the basic story is that I had the wrong colored light, and when I dropped my transponder, that light was still there. And if I put my hand over it, I could still see the light. And then I started thinking, well, either I've got nitrogen narcosis, rapture of the deep, or I was hallucinating. It just made no sense to me. And all of a sudden, I looked at my depth gauge, and I was down 200 feet, which was deadly for a long period of time, and equipment we had. I mean, I was wearing old-fashioned 2080s.
Okay.
Air tanks. And so I kept getting sucked down to the bottom of the ocean, and I dropped my lead weight belt, and I should have started floating up, and I didn't. And I kept going deeper, and I pulled the CO2 cartridges on my buoyancy compensator, which has shot me up fairly fast. I would have ended up with the bends, and then have to decompress me, which they couldn't have done because we didn't have decompression unit on our boat because, you know, if we got pulled over by the Russians and boarded, how do you explain that?
Right.
So either way, I knew I was just totally screwed and would probably die. So the deeper I got, I started this light that was tracking me, staying right in front of me all the time, took off and merged with this huge grouping of other lights. And they strobed and flared up a couple of times. It lit up the whole bottom of the ocean. And next thing I knew, I mean, there was this almost like musical melody in my head, but it sounded like no music I've ever heard before. I mean, it was just euphoric type music. And next thing I know, I had blackened out. Now,
how far down do you figure you were at this point?
My last recognition was over 200 feet.
Okay.
And luckily, the ocean around there is kind of on a plateau. It's not as deep like as a deep trench or something like that ocean.
Right.
So they were supposed to have pulled out by nightfall, but they kept looking for me and decided to stay to daybreak and then pull out in case, you know, my body floated top or something like that. So as they were giving the orders, as Rossov was giving the orders, turn around and head back to Naha Port on Okinawa, southern Okinawa Island, Mike screamed something and dove in the water. And everybody watching him didn't know what the hell he was doing, and then they could see in a distance there was a body floating on the water face up. And my buoyancy compensator was inflated, which kept me on my back. So he grabbed me and started pulling me, swim back towards the boat, and the boat made a turn to get closer to cut the distance in half. And he said I was just talking gibberish, that talking about this light.
Oh, okay.
So they pulled me on the boat, took off towards Okinawa, and then Owen McKeon were basically cursing me for screwing up the mission and this and that. And the weirdest thing of all is my tanks were totally full.
Your air tanks?
Yes.
Now, how the hell can...
It's impossible. Because it's at the point of my last memory being underwater, my gauges showed that I was on the last bit of my reserve air. Before any of this started happening, I'd already made 2 coordinates down 100 feet. I was perfectly clear-headed, clear-minded. I was watching my depth gauge, watching my air gauge, and but something happened, something just really odd and strange. Now, years later, which I'm still trying to track down, I've got a little information, that there was a UFO that crashed in the same area.
Okay.
And one of my friends, that shall remain anonymous because he's still alive, thank God, but I call him Dale, said that you weren't there to retrieve a Russian trawler. You were there to lock on to the metal of the saucer.
Oh, that's interesting.
So our transponders actually had some kind of mass or metal detector or something in them, and we thought they were just regular radio transponders.
And like you said, yours did lock on.
Yes.
Now, that's interesting. How could you be at that depth with having already been to 2 coordinates and going to the 3rd and being sucked down to that depth? Would you, I don't see how you could possibly make it to the surface with that little air.
Oh, I could have probably made it to the surface, but I'd had to go up so fast. But on the other hand, my buoyancy compensation wouldn't work, which is impossible because that's like inflating a small inner tube underwater. It's going to push you up fairly fast.
And you continue to go down.
I continue to go down. So even if I'd have made it to the top, even if I'd had oxygen, I would have had to bend so bad. With all that nitrogen in my blood, it would have killed me because there was no decompression chamber.
Right, because you were on a sort of a undercover recovery mission and
exactly
didn't have any identifying labels on your outfits that, you know.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's an interesting event. So where would you go from there? You had that in Okinawa, and you had that event happening. What happened after that? Any events that you would consider strange after that?